Okay, so week two is a lot about introducing you to mathematical conversions. We're going to dive in. I'm going to show you alternative ways to do a mixture of conversions so then you kind of have options. And then I will post this video. Um, Later, probably either later tonight or tomorrow. I do have a YouTube channel. I'll put that on there so that you have it. Okay. So, when you go to take your first test, there will be a tab where you have the option to open up two things. You can open up Desmos and you can open up um, the conversion chart link. So, at the start of the test, you'll want to do that. Desmos is an online calculator, and I will kind of show you how Desmos works, show you how to do things. There's tons of things that Desmos can do that you might not be aware of. I'll kind of show you what are some of the things. Please be mindful of the fact when you do your homework, quizzes, tests, to use these conversions. Let me give you an example. They say that 1 pound is approximately 0.45 kilograms, which is true. That's fine. But if you go to look online, many times they'll tell you that 1 kilogram, or I'm sorry, that 2.2 pounds is 1 kilogram. So if you use that conversion, your decimal and round it to a nearest whatever might be a little off. So my suggestion to you would be to make sure you're using the conversions given. You don't have to memorize these. They are going to be given to you to a tab. Print them out for your homework, print them out for your quizzes, but you can't use them day of the test. But again, there'll be a tab that you can keep referring to. Okay. I am going to show you some nice conversion little facts to help you. That although you can't print them out or have a copy of them written down before you take the test. Sometimes I suggest writing some of these little facts as soon as you're allowed to start writing things down on your blank sheet of paper once you've started the test. And then, that's a good, or I'm sorry, you're not allowed paper, aren't you allowed a whiteboard? So you could write some of that facts on your whiteboard. Okay. So those are some of the facts right here that you see on the screen that I'll be using. So let's go ahead and get started. So you'll notice that the four problems that you see on your screen are converting the metric system. Now, I taught nursing math uh, 30 more years ago, and the students had to have these facts actually memorized. But the tool that I'm going to show you that helps you to memorize also helps you to convert back and forth between these things. So let me kind of show you a little thing you might want to write down on your paper. Okay, so it's kilo, for a K for kilo, H for hecto. Um, in some books, and for my purposes, capital D will be deca, and then our unit, and then deci, we'll use little d, centi, milli, and then micro, we need two little placeholders. I just make little stars, it doesn't matter. And then our micro. So we'll put MC for micro. Sorry about that. Okay. Now, what's really great about this chart, you can remember this part really quickly. But if you have the conversions, you can just write this order on your page. There's a silly saying, it's kittens hide down under dad's car motor. And then you just got to remember two stars and a micro. Anyway, so when you have that written down, what's really great is you can use it as a conversion tool. And here's why. Um, the metric system is in some ways superior, don't tell anybody, to the system that we use here in America. It is more efficient. It's so much nicer because our number system is a base 10 system. Since the metric system is base 10, what it allows you to do is to quickly just move the decimal place a certain number of places when converting. So, what does the U stand for? The U is your plain old unit. So I'm going to write unit here. And, this is kilo. This is hecto. This is deci. No, I'm sorry. That's deca. Sorry about that. This is deca. The unit, which would be grams, meters, liter. So the thing without the any sort of prefix on it. So meter, liter, gram. This is deci. This is centi. This is milli. And this is micro. Okay. I don't know if they still use it, but there is a little Greek symbol you can also use for micro. Okay, so that being said, and now we kind of know what those things are. To take 30 grams, or 30 kilograms, I'm sorry, and convert them to grams, which is our units, if you put your pencil on kilo and we jump to unit, which is gram, one, two, three jumps to the right. All we got to do is take the decimal here and move it three places to the right. And so it is 30,000. So that decimal place, when you don't see it, is right on the end. Kilogram to units. I have to jump one, two, three to the right. My decimal place jumps one, two, three to the right. So it's a really nice tool to use that metric system conversions. It's just going to wiggle that decimal place back and forth. So it's a really kind of a good thing. If you knew that 1 kilogram is equal to 1,000 grams, we can also use that as a fact. 1 kilogram is 1,000 grams. So 30 kilograms would be how many? And you could just put like an X there as a placeholder. Now, here's what you have to be concerned about. Kilograms on top on both sides, grams on the bottom on both sides. You have to be consistent. So if you put kilograms on top, you got to keep it on top on the other side. And then to solve a proportion, you just cross multiply and then divide. And look what happens. We do 30 times 1,000, we get 30,000. And so, you can use that as well. Okay. So I'll do it both ways. And as I go through these problems, I like to show you alternate ways to do the problems so you can pick what feels most natural to you. Okay. 5 milliliters to liters. Milli is right here. We have to go to the one without any prefix, the unit liter. And so we have to go to the left. We have to jump one. I'm sorry, my one, two, three places to get to the left. So our decimal place right now is here. In order to convert, we're going to go three places to the left. Now, there are not any numbers there, so you're going to put a 0 in front, and the new decimal place will be there. Now, the answer is that it is 0.005. In nursing, it is very important that you explicitly show that front 0 as an indicator to really show where that decimal place is, and that would be our liters. Now, to do it in a proportional fashion, if you know that 1 liter is 1,000 milliliters, then if you set up the proportion, then how many liters would be 5? You'll notice that when we solve it, if you cross multiply, you get 5 equals 1,000x. Let me write that down. 5 times 1 is 5, and that's equal to 1,000x. Whatever's on the x, we have to divide off. So we would divide by 1,000, which essentially moves the decimal three places to the left. Exactly what we saw as an answer right here. So really, it's kind of your choice how you do it. The little chart is super nice in my thoughts, but that's me. But let's try one more. Two more. We're converting 2 kilometers to millimeters. Kilo, kilometers, and milli is uh, here, kilometers to millimeters. We have lots of jumps to the right. So let's count how many jumps. One, two, three, four, five, six to the right. And that's because a kilo is 1,000 meters, and then a meter is 1,000 millimeters. And so it's a big conversion. So 2 kilometers to millimeters, if we move that decimal place here to the right, again, let me show you. In this spot, one, two, three, four, five, six jumps to the right, we have to add 6 zeros on. So it's 2 million. So 2 kilometers is isn't that kind of maybe close to a mile-ish, something like that? So, you could think a millimeter is like about the thickness of a nice size paperclip. So, yeah. Okay. And then finally, we got one more. It says to convert 2 grams to micrograms. So my little chart comes into play again. Grams is the unit in the middle, in the U spot. We just need to jump to the right to get to micro. Now, a microgram is 1,000th of a milligram. So it's very teeny, teeny, tiny. And if you look, it's actually one, two, three, four, five, six jumps to the right. It's a millionth of a gram. So it makes sense that this would be 2 million, because we'd have to take that decimal place, move it 6 places to the right, which would then make it 2 million. Now, be very careful when you're entering these things into the Canvas application that's in there. Sometimes they want you to type in the units. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they round it to the nearest whatever. Follow the instructions precisely, or it'll mark it wrong. Now, for my students, I do like to go in and kind of take a look at what they've entered in case they've had one little thing, but they had the right answer in there. But, I can't speak for every other instructor out there. So that is our metric conversion. My little kittens hide down under dad's car motor is very helpful. They give you that chart on the conversions sheet. It's just up and down. Just write it out from left to right, starting with kilo, and then go over. Just remember micro, you need 2 placeholders for my little trick to work. Okay, so that is metrics. Now let's move on to the standard system that we use here in America. Okay, so 45 feet to inches. I'm going to show you how to set up a proportion and how to use the conversions that are on the sheet. So you have to find on the sheet, what information do we know about feet and inches? Well, we know that 1 foot is 12 inches. So what I do is I turn that into a fraction. I'm going to write that 1 foot over 12 inches. Okay, that is my conversion fraction. There's a conversion factor. I'm not sure exactly how you put that, but that's what I'm going to set up initially. And since they gave us the 45 feet and I decided to put the feet on top, you're going to put the feet on the top on the right fraction. We don't know the inches, so that's your unknown. You can put an X. You can put any letter you want. It doesn't matter to me. To solve a proportion, you're going to cross multiply. The number that gets attached to our X is what we have to divide by, unless it's 1, because then it doesn't matter. So 1 times X, 1 times anything is just, in this case, X, which is great. But we do have to do 45 times 12. 45 times 12 is 540. Okay. Now I want to show you the Desmos calculator, and by next week, hopefully, I'll have verified there's 2 different versions. They both do the same thing. I don't know if they uh, let you use the graphing one or just the standard one. I'll find that out. It doesn't really matter for today, but next time I'll try to find that. This is the Desmos graphing calculator. It appears as if you just can only graph things on it, but you can't. You can do mathematics. So in that little bar on the left side, like if you were on a computer doing this, you can just type in 45 times 12. And then the answer, you'll notice, see the 540, it appears in that little block right there. So, I mean, Desmos is a tool. It's like any other calculator per se. Okay. Okay. So the answer is 540. We should always label it. In Canvas, when you're taking some of those quizzes and tests, I've noticed that sometimes it'll say include the units, sometimes it will not. Usually they expect like a space and then IN. So just watch how you enter it so that it doesn't mark it wrong. So our first answer, 45 feet, is equivalent to 540 inches. Okay. So proportions are a good way. Now there's sometimes in a science class you'll see some conversion rates used. There's a name for that. I can't remember what it's called, but I am showing you just kind of what occurs to me. So no, there are many ways to do a math problem. I'm showing you what I think is kind of the most efficient. I've been teaching for a super long time, and it just to me, I'm just kind of showing you what I think would work. Okay. Now, for the second one here, it says 7 feet 3 inches to only feet. So this one's a little unique one because we've got already 7 feet, but then we have this 3 inches, and we only want the answer to say feet. So how do you do that? Well, it's really going to be seven that we already have. We have 7 feet plus some more, but what more? Well, that uses the same factor up here. We know that 1 foot is 12 inches. So if we do a little proportion, we know if 1 foot is 12 inches, then how many feet would be 3? And watch what happens when we go to solve that. It ends up being 1 times 3, which is 3. And then you'll end up dividing by 12. So it really becomes 3/12 is x. Now, if you put into your calculator 3 divided by 12, 3 divided by 12 is the same, it reduces, it's the same as 1/4. It's a quarter of a foot. A quarter, or 3 divided by 12, is the decimal point 0.25. So you really end up taking the 7 feet that you do have and the extra little inches, it's a part of a foot, a decimal part of the foot, and you just add those together. So it ends up being 7.25 feet. So if part of it is in the smaller unit, you end up dividing by that conversion factor of 12. Okay. Now there's another little thing I want to show you for this last one. They're going to give you all of the different volume conversions, quarts to cups, um, but they don't necessarily link them together. Okay. So I have a little, let me add a little page in here for us. Um, And I want to show you just a little trick, okay? And again, once you have your whiteboard and you show it to the screen that the whiteboard is clean, and then this drawing might be really helpful, okay? And you can use your conversion chart really if you want, okay? The big G stands for gallon, so that is 1 gallon. And if you read on the chart, it says that a gallon is 4 quarts. So put 4 big Q's in there, as big as you can fit them inside of the G. And don't expect this to be very pretty, but it'll get the job done. Inside every quart, one of the things it also tells you is that a quart contains 2 pints. So I put 2 P's in here. Again, don't expect this to be beautiful, but and then it also tells us that, does it tell us anywhere good? No, see, that's why I like this little chart. Okay. Now, it also, a fact that I don't see in the volume section. Let me check those because there's a few other things I've got. No, it doesn't really say. So this might be a very helpful little trick for you. Inside every pint is 2 cups. So put 2 little C's as big as you can fit them. Sorry, they're not. uniform, but I think you get the idea. And then every cup contains 8 fluid ounces. So I make a little 8. It starts to get pretty convoluted, but it gets the job done. So what does this tell us? Again, we have the conversion chart, but this blends all these facts together. 1 gallon contains 4 quarts. Let me close this so I can write a little, have more room. Okay. So 1 gallon is 4 quarts. 1 quart contains 2 pints. The whole gallon, if you count up all the P's, 2, 4, 6, 8, is 8 pints. Okay, let's go one smaller. We said that 1 pint contains 2 cups. If we just focus on a Q, there are 4 cups in a quart. If we focus on the whole G, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 cups live in a gallon. So look at how much more information it gives us than just what it says on the conversion sheet. Yeah, it works. The conversion sheet's helpful, but this is really helpful. And let me keep going. 1 cup contains 8 fluid ounces. That's what the 8 stands for. So if we focus on a P, 2 8s is 16. So a pint is 16 fluid ounces. So 4 8s is 32. So a quart is 32 fluid ounces if we just fluid ounces. And then if we look at the whole G, there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 eighths. If you do 16 times 8, 16 times 8 is 128. So that's 128 ounces. So the reason I kind of like this picture, I just like it because it really kind of ties all the fluid things together. Now, you do have to know that a tablespoon is uh, is 3 teaspoons. They don't tell you that. In that the picture doesn't really say that. And then I think, sir, oh, that is pretty good. I mean, we could say that a fluid ounce is a fluid ounce is 30 milliliters, is 2 tablespoons, is 6 teaspoons. So there's so many different more connections we can make. But to me, um, that right there gives us a ton of information. You don't, of course, have to write all that. All you need is if you have the picture, and then you'll have that conversion chart in another tab, or while you're doing your homework, print out that conversion chart. Um, this is going to help us a lot. Okay, so now, now that we've done all that, let's jump to this 5 quarts to cups. So I'm going to keep this up here. 5 quarts is how many cups? Well, gosh, we have it staring us right in the face. 1 quart contains 4 cups. 1 quart contains 4 cups. So 5 quarts contains how many cups? You can see very clearly what to solve this. You have to do 5 times 4. You can use logic. If you draw out 5 Qs, you would end up having 20 cups drawn out, but the answer is 20. Okay, so I've always, when I taught nursery math many moons ago, I just always found my students felt that that was a very nice tool. So I wanted you to see that. Okay, so that is that first uh, standard conversion. So I wanted you to see that. And then we should be able to convert back and forth between the standard and the metric. So that's where this comes into play. We can't use that kitten's hide down under dad's car motor. We can't use the big G. We need a way to connect those things. And that's where this comes into play. So again, as you're doing your homework, make sure you always have this printed out or a picture on your phone or something. because you're going to need to refer to this a lot. Now, if you memorize some of them, that's great too, but okay. So let's jump to this. Convert 15 milliliters to a teaspoon. Well, one of the things they say about volume right here is that a teaspoon is 5 milliliters. So I'm going to write that down. 1 teaspoon is 5 milliliters. And then I'm going to use that to set up a proportion. Most of these can be solved with proportion, so I do tend to go to that. Okay. So what do we got? So if we want to know how many teaspoons it is, that's our missing. Since teaspoons is on the top on the left, I want to put teaspoons on the top on the right. And then I have 15 milliliters, so that goes there. So this should be milliliters to milliliters, teaspoons, teaspoons. And then to solve a proportion, we're going to cross multiply. So you're going to multiply those, and that with that. 1 times 15 is 15. 5 times x is 5x. If your unknown has a number attached to it, or whatever you ended up crossing over with your x is what you have to divide. So you would have to divide by 5 to solve this problem. And so we get that the answer is 3. Now, we should always write our answer with the units attached to it. Please look at your homework instructions. Sometimes they want it typed in, sometimes they don't. But we know that 15 milliliters is equal to 3 teaspoons. So that's that one. Okay. Now let's take a look at converting 75 kilograms to pounds. Now, this is a perfect one that if you go on the internet and you ask the internet, what is the conversion rate between kilograms and pounds, it usually says that 1 kilogram is 2.2 pounds. Now, it must be more accurate, or in the nursing field, they don't necessarily always use that. Use what's on the conversion sheet. So if you look on your conversion sheet, I can't say that, I'm sorry. Right here, 1 pound is approximately 0.45 kilograms. Okay, so that's what we're going to use. Let me write that down. 1 pound is approximately 0.45 kilograms. And why does my LB never look like that? Well, let's do it like this. That's a little better. I don't know. Anyway, so what are we trying to convert? Well, we need 75 kilograms is how many pounds? And so the kilograms goes on the bottom. The pounds goes on the top. We don't know that. We're going to put an X there. And we are going to cross multiply. Whatever gets attached to the X will be the thing we divide by. 1 times 75 is 75. The 0.45 goes over with the X, which means we have to divide that off. And so we would divide by 0.45. And if you do 75 divided by 0.45, we get something ooky, but I'm going to use this as a teachable moment. That's what the calculator reads. Lots of sixes after the decimal place. Okay. Now, the reason I mean that's a teachable moment is because let's talk about how I've seen them use the rounding on Canvas. If they say round to the nearest hundredth, 100 has 2 zeros in it. 2 places after the decimal, TH means it's after the decimal. 2 places after the decimal is hundredth. So we would need to look at what is after the hundredth place. If it's 5 or bigger, round up. If it is 4 or less, keep it what it is. So if they say to round this to the nearest hundredth, okay, then we would see, oh, on the next place is a 6. So that one needs to go up to a 7. Our answer would be 166.67 pounds. So just watch what place. The tenths place is 1 decimal place. The hundredths place is 2 decimal places. Thousandth is 3. Whole number place, like if I rounded to the nearest whole pound, that would be 167 pounds. Just watch how they want you to round. Be very careful because that can come up. Now, they probably wanted to show you the difference between converting from kilograms to pounds and then from pounds to kilograms. Think of it like this. Maybe you wouldn't want to tell somebody how much you weigh. Say, oh, I weigh, whatever you weigh. I don't know. So we'll just pick a number. If you weigh 180 pounds, and then you don't want to tell them that. So you want to throw them off a little bit, and you want to tell them how much you weigh in kilograms instead, because maybe they don't know the conversion. If you do that, you would only weigh 81 kilograms, which sounds kind of cool. But anyway, so there is a significant difference. The kilograms will make it appear smaller. Okay. So keep that in mind when you get your answer. Look, 75 kilograms seems a lot smaller than 166.67 pounds. So be careful with that. Okay. Now let's do the same conversion. Well, we have to use the same conversion fact for this one. Okay. So we're still going to write down the same exact fact. 1 pound is 0.45 kilograms. But we know the pounds this time. 155 pounds is how many kilograms. So we know the pounds, so it goes on top. We don't know the kilograms, so that's our X. Okay. Now watch what happens. When we do it, we multiply now by 0.45. So that's why a proportion is really very helpful, because if you set it up right, it's going to tell you, do I multiply by 0.45 or do I divide? So it's just a helpful tool. If you cross multiply, 1 times X is just X. 155 times 0.45 is 69.75. Another teachable moment. If they say round to the nearest pound, it's 70. If they say round to the nearest tenth, it's 69.8. If they say round to the nearest hundredth, it's 69.75. If they say round to the nearest thousandth, you should show 3 decimal places. So I would just add on that extra zero in the end to make sure that I'm showing what places they said. But I'm just going to write the exact answer here, 69.7. Okay, so I'm just trying to show you some things that I've noticed um, that they've marked wrong or on the homework or something as I get to them. Okay, so that is a little bit about some metric to standard or vice versa. And after we're done here, I'll still be here. I'll stop the recording, and then of course I'll answer any questions you might have. We can go back and revisit anything that you have questions on. Okay, so let's take a look at this one. Now, this one was kind of like that feet. We had one that was like feet in inches. It was kind of weird. This is kind of a similar vein of that. We're still within the standard system, so you still need to know standard system facts, but we have that little extra piece. Now, the fact we want to use for this first one, a pound, 1 pound is 16 ounces. Okay, 1 pound is 16 ounces. That's the fact we're going to use. We already know this is 18. So we know that's 18 pounds, 5 ounces. We know that's 18 pounds. So it's going to be 18 point something. But how much something? We don't have enough to make 16 ounces back into a new pound. We only have 5. So what you're going to do is convert that alone into its decimal equivalent, and then we'll add it to the 18. Okay, so what do we do? Well, if 1 pound is 16 ounces, then how many pounds would 5 ounces be? Now, the reason we do that is it shows us we're going to multiply 1 times 5, and then we're going to end up dividing off that 16. But let me show you. 1 times 5 is 5. 16 times x is 16x. To solve for x, you got to divide by 16. Whatever is touching the x needs to divide off. And so we get a decimal. The 16ths normally go to about the longest decimal place is 3 decimal places. three or four, depending on what we end up dividing by. 5 divided by 16 is 0.3125. And so then on your calculator, you can just do 18 plus 0.3125. And it just sticks that on the end. It's 18.3125. Now, that is the exact value to the nearest. That's 10 thousandths. A 10,000 has four zeros. That's the 10 thousandths place. Be careful, okay? If they say round to the nearest tenth, it would, well, let's do nearest whole number. You just write 18. Nearest tenth would be 18.3. Hundredth would be 18.31. Uh, Thousandth, because there's a 5 after the 2, it would be 18.313. And then this would be 10,000. I think I usually recall that they mostly round to hundreds and thousands, I think. Well, I don't know. Okay. Let's do this conversion is kind of a strange one. We're going to do the 155 pounds, 11 ounces, and convert it completely into pounds like we did exactly here. And then we'll take that to kilograms. So it's a two-step process. Okay. So we need to know what the heck 11 ounces is. So we know 1 pound is 16 ounces. So how many pounds would that 11 ounces be? So we know it's more than half. How much more? Well, you end up doing 11 divided by 16 to solve that. And 11 divided by 16 is the decimal 0.6875. So we would take the 155 pounds, and if you add that on, it just places that decimal there. Okay, so that's the first thing you got to do. It needs to be pounds and pounds alone because we only have a conversion for pounds. Okay, so now the next phase. The next phase, we've got to say, okay, well, we know that 1 pound is 0.45 kilograms, just a little under half of a kilogram. So this number goes in the top because that's pounds. I'm going to leave it what it is. And I would probably try not to round until our final result. I think it would be a good idea. And then that's our x. Now, what does that tell us mathematically to do? Well, we're going to multiply. 1 times x is just going to be x. So it's really just the multiplication will get us the answer. And so if I do that 155.6875 times 0.45. Now, it's a long decimal place. Okay, so I want to show you the whole thing and then we can go from there. Okay, so it's this 70.059375. Okay, so that's what my calculator reads. So that would be our, as close to an exact answer as we're going to get. But it really depends upon how they ask the question. If they say to the nearest whole pound, the answer is 70. So I don't know what did it doesn't say on my sheet here how to round it. If it says to the nearest tenth, it would be 70.1 because there's a 5 after that zero, make it go up to 1. If they want two decimal places nearest hundredth, it's 70.06 because the 9 rounds that 5 up to a 6. If they say to the nearest thousandth, it's 70.059, and you just leave it a 9. So be very mindful. Read that question thoroughly. Am I really answering the question that they've given me? Okay, so that is that. Now we have some conversions um, into from Celsius to Fahrenheit and Fahrenheit to Celsius. I'm trying to see if that's on the conversion sheet. I don't have the official conversion sheet here in front of me, but take a look. If it's on there, great. You get to use it during the test. If it's not on there, you want to memorize it. Okay. So here is the formula to take Fahrenheit and turn it into Celsius. I don't like the way it's written, so I'm going to just kind of write it a little differently. If you were doing it yourself or memorizing the formula, I would think take your Fahrenheit minus 32, get an answer, and then divide by 1.8. That's probably the simplest way to think about what they showed you there. Their division symbol is really weird. But anyway, so if we have 72.5 degrees Celsius, first thing we do is 72.5 minus 32. We're going to get an answer. That's why the parentheses are there. And then we'll divide that answer by 1.8. So 72.5 minus 32 is 40.5. Then we'll divide that answer by 1.8. And if we divide that answer by 1.8, we get 22.5. And then, so that would be 22.5 degrees Celsius. Now, usually I don't believe they have you put any kind of degree symbol or Celsius there. But keeping it to the nearest tenth is pretty reasonable, I would say. Most of the measurements we see there is to the nearest tenth. So we'll just keep it there. Okay. Now we need to know how to go the other way. That is our Celsius to Fahrenheit formula. So if you know the Celsius, you're just going to multiply it by 1.8 and then get an answer following order of operations. You do that multiplication and then you add 32. So it's kind of the opposite order that you see the other one, which makes sense because they're inverse formulas from one another. Okay, so we're converting 28 degrees Celsius, so that has to go right there. So the first thing we do is 28 times 1.8. We're going to get an answer. Order of operations tells us we got to do that multiplication first. So 28 times 1.8 is 50.4 plus 32 gives us a Fahrenheit of 82.4 degrees. Okay. So that's how you use either direction. Again, check the official conversion chart, print it out. If the Celsius and Fahrenheit formulas are not there, please make sure you have those memorized. If they're there, just practice using them. Okay. And then let me see how many we got. I'm sorry, this is a pretty long one. We have four more things to go. Hopefully this won't take us over. If it is, I'm gonna just keep talking until I get them all done. But hopefully we'll have a little bit of time afterwards if you have any questions. Okay. So here it says a medication is dosed at 3 milligrams per kilogram. How much medication should a 37 kilogram patient get? Because these units right here match, we are allowed to use a conversion. Okay. So if we are given 3 milligrams per 1 kilogram, then how many milligrams would we give to a 37 kilogram patient? Just like those conversion facts from the conversion sheet, if these are exact measurements, we can use a proportion. So we can set this proportion up. And all proportions are solved by cross multiplying. So we can see 3 times 37, 1 times x. 3 times 37 is 111. 1 times x is x. It started out on milligrams on the top. Our x is on the top, so the answer would be in milligrams. So that would be how you would do that question. Let's do this one. It says an IV flow rate is set at 3.5 milliliters per minute. We're going to convert this to liters per hour. Now, I am going to do this one a little different using a method that uses a little bit of a scientific method, but hopefully you'll be able to follow it through, okay? So I'm going to write it as a fraction, 3.5 milliliters, and I'm going to write, think of the fraction line where per is. Almost every single one, if it said per something, just put a line where uh, the fraction line where the word per is. And so this would be minute. And I'm going to put a 1 just to kind of remind us what we see there. Wait, let's not put an equal sign. So instead of setting up a proportion, we are going to use our conversion factor to cancel things out. Now, the rules of fractions say that if we multiply by equivalent things on top and bottom, you haven't messed anything up. You're equivalent to what you started with, okay? So the first one I need to convert liters milliliters into liters. So we're going to write a fact, and I need to put, even if the page says differently on our conversion fact, I need to put milliliters on the bottom and liters on the top. Okay. 1 liter is 1,000 milliliters. So finding what that unit is and how it relates. Um, and, if you look at your conversion facts on the metric, uh, milla is 1,000th of something. So 1 liter jumps three over to the right to get to milliliters. It's 1,000. Okay. And then I need to get rid of minutes. Okay. So milliliters was on top. I need one on the bottom. This is only in this method when we use a conversion fact, not setting up a proportion. As a conversion fact, we need to have matching things on top and bottom because we're going to cancel them out. Okay. So what do we have to convert? Well, we have to convert minutes into hours. So we want minutes on the top and hours on the bottom. Well, we know that 1 hour is equivalent to 60 minutes. Now, the reason I'm doing it like this is because it makes the math of the whole thing work a lot quicker and nicer. Because here's what we get to do. We're just going to multiply all the tops together, all the bottoms together, and then we'll divide top to bottom. Okay, here's what I mean. 3.5 times 60 is the times 1, if you really want to think about that. You could throw that in your calculator, doesn't hurt anything, is 210. Okay. 1 times 1,000 times 1 is 1,000. What's left on top? Well, if you look at our units, our milliliter units were canceled because there's one on top and one on bottom. And then our minutes canceled because there's one on top and one on bottom. The only thing that's left is a liter and an hour. And that's exactly what they wanted. So this would be liters per hour. Now, 210 divided by 1,000 is a nice thing. Well, I mean, it's not the greatest thing, but it's okay. If you actually get a number, that would be 0.21 liters per hour. So that would be your final answer, 0.21 liters per hour. And again, always check to see how do they want us to write the final answer. I don't have that part here, but always try to follow those instructions. Two more, and then we are free for the night. Let's look at this one. Oh, hopefully you're free. Okay. A medication comes in 50 milliliter bags. There are 300 milligrams of medication in the bag. If a patient requires 125 milligrams, how many milliliters? Now, what I like for this one is it's milliliters, milligrams, milliliters, milligrams. Everything matches up nicely. I don't have to do any conversions. That tells my brain, oh, since it matches so nicely, I can do a proportion. So write down what the bag contains. 50 milliliters contains 300 milligrams. So this is your volume, your liquid, how much liquid it is, and this is the actual drug, their medication, okay? So that's the proportion with what the drug is there. The patient requires 125 milligrams. It has to match up when we're setting a proportion up. So that's why those are milligrams and that's where it goes. How many milliliters should they get? That's on top. That's our unknown. That's what our X is. So mathematically, we're going to cross multiply and then we'll divide off the 300. Okay. In your calculator, if you put 50 times 125, that's 6,250. The 300 would cross over to the X, telling us that's what I got to divide by. 6,250 divided by 300 gives me a weird, funky decimal. That would be 20.83. And the 3 keeps repeating on my calculator, and that would be milliliters. Now, milliliters are pretty small. It's technically if you make a little cube that's a centimeter by a centimeter by a centimeter. That's how much a milliliter is. But anyway, so follow the instructions. If they said to the nearest whole milliliter, that would be 21 milliliters. If they said to the nearest tenth, it would be 20.8. If they said to the nearest hundredth, it would be 20.83. So those all look very different depending on how they ask you to round. So I'm going to just kind of leave it there depending on what the question says. So this would be rounded to the nearest whole, to tenth, hundredth. Okay, last one for today. It says it's estimated that 6% of the public have been infected with a new virus. In a city of 35,000 people, how many have the virus? Well, 6%. Earlier, I mentioned how that word per um, kind of refers to our fraction line, is the same as 6 per 100%. That cent is a Latin, I believe, either Greek or Latin, that means 100 century, cents in a dollar. It always refers to 100. So 6 out of 100. Or you can divide 6 by 100 and use the decimal point oh 0.06. So anytime you are using 6%, 5%, 10%, you technically need to divide out by 100. So it's really the whole times the percent in decimal form will equal the part that you're looking for, if that helps at all. So the whole population, 35,000, times 6% as a decimal, you can either write as 6 over 100. You can also write times 0.06. I don't know, but we're going to find out right now if Desmos has a percent key. And again, oh, it is. See it? There's an exclamation, there's a percent. So let's try something here. Um, it was 35,000. There's 35,000 times 6%. So let's put in 6. Let me get to the percentage symbol. Oh, so they want it differently. Okay, let's try again. So 6%, 6, they want the percent put in first. 6% of 35,000. So it looks or it feels a little more like the language of it, and the answer is correct. It's 2100. So Desmos does have a percent button. It's a little weird. So you can do it like that. You can also do 35 thousand times 0.06, like I've showed you before. See, same number in the little spot, 2100. Okay. Oop. So anyway, you slice it, approximately 2100 people would have the new virus. Okay. So there you go. I'm going to stop the recording and then, but if you want to stick around for a minute or ask me any questions, feel free. If you want to run away, you can too. And I appreciate you stopping by.